Welcome to our Thursday exclusive. This is a series that Build Capable XCL hosts in order to share all things about what XCL can do and how it enables our everyday work. And today I asked Melissa Milloway to join us to talk about her project, which I am sure many of you have seen her sharing openly on LinkedIn about her progress through this. We wanted to take today to talk a little bit about some things that Melissa took and ran with and really push the boundaries of what you can do in Articulate Rise. So we're going to be spending most of our time today sharing that project. So welcome, Melissa, to the exclusive.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to share with everyone and answer any questions that anyone has. And yeah.
So let's start off today's exclusive by talking a little bit about your project. So could you tell us a little bit about this portfolio project? How did this get started? Where did it come from?
Yeah, so I actually probably didn't even share this with you, Sarah, but this whole portfolio project is around the topic of influencing upwards. So it's how do you influence like a people leader or executive at your company, someone in leadership to buy into your idea or something that you want the company to do. And the way that this kind of came about was I was looking to build a new portfolio piece that was more based on some, I hate the word soft skills, like communication skills, like those types of things, because I really don't have anything like that in my portfolio. I asked people on LinkedIn, and this was the one that people commented on the most. So that's where that came about. And I really wanted to not just do that topic, but do it in a way that would be really intriguing and engaging and immersive for people. So that was my main goal. And I used ChatGPT to go through the whole learning needs analysis and assessment process to figure out, oh, okay, like a simulation would achieve our business goal or help achieve our business goal for this project.
And that's about the time that I started to see it. We had lunch and hung out with ZD and Moxie, our dogs, in Seattle, and we were having a conversation about this project. And I was asking you, what were some of the things you used to build it? Because obviously, anyone who uses Articulate Rise knows that you used something else other than just Rise to build this project. And so, talk to us a little bit about the tools you used.
Yeah, and I'll screen share so you all can see. I'll walk through and I can talk through my process and how everything got done. So you're going to see the back end of how this is built. So maybe a little messy, but bear with me here. Oh, also, I'm doing this in XCL. So you're going to be able to see the statements that it generates because this is the published version that uses xAPI. So I'm going to go ahead and view my link and it's going to load here. This is just a start screen for XCL. So this is the beginning piece here. One of the things I really wanted to do, and I used ChatGPT to do this, is create an atmosphere for this that was like the show Severance or like Stanley Parable. It's a game where you're immersed in an office environment. I wanted it to feel a little bit dystopian, but also not detracting from the whole experience too much. So what I wanted to figure out how to do is how can I create a more immersive experience in Rise? And so what I did was I ended up using a tool called Mighty, which is a plugin for Rise that allows you to add in JavaScript and unique blocks into Rise and different things like that. And also styling, CSS, all of that. And actually, I'll show this in Rise so you can see what it looks like here too. So you can see there's this little Mighty icon here in the bottom here. Has anyone used Mighty with Rise before?
I have, and it was very easy because when you have the plugin, it adds it into the Rise interface. So it's not a separate thing somewhere else. It's just you're working with Mighty inside of Rise. It just gives
Yeah.
you additional options.
Yeah. So I number, I'm showing you my back end here. So I numbered everything to make sense for me. I actually used ChatGPT to build me branching scenarios. So it did the whole table on how to do the branching. So you can see there's the original parent branching question. And then based on how you answer, you get response 1, 2, 3, 4. And then based on what you answer for those, then you get sent into a path where the thing is optimal moderate or weak. That's what you get sorted into. So with xAPI, we can see where people are going and what path they're on and different things like that, which is really interesting. So I have 25. I don't think I needed 25 lessons. I could have probably done this differently, but I have 25 lessons here. So looking at the screen we just saw here, I'll break down what I did. So up here, this is actually, it's a content block for Mighty. It's specific to Mighty. It's an interactive HTML block. So all the progress meters that you'll see throughout the whole project are HTML. So they're responsive too, which is really great. And Mighty lets you do this thing called match content height. So whatever your HTML page is, you can match it to that size. So you can build things like navigation, progress meters, anything that you want to build. And you can also add additional code down here to it. So it's pretty cool. That's one way that you can make Rise look like a website or something different than using just like a built-in navigation, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So when we had the conversation and you were talking me through this project, because we could talk about just this project this entire call, because you did a lot of really interesting stuff. And
Yeah.
I loved the videos that you created using, it was Colossyan?
Oh, Colossyan. Yeah.
Yeah, and you had created some videos, but you also edited them using, tell us.
Oh, Adobe After Effects and Premiere.
And so there is a lot that you did in this project that we could talk about. Let's talk about the data side, because whenever you and I were having this conversation, obviously I was geeking out, but as soon as you said JavaScript, I perked up and I said, oh, does that mean you can do custom xAPI statements? And
Yes.
for those of you who are familiar with xAPI, you may have been noticing the same thing. If you're not familiar with xAPI, it's a way that we can get data about anything that's happening in this course that she's built. And so when you think about opening up tools like access to the code and being able to get into using JavaScript, then that means that we could execute additional actions like telling us what's happening in the course as you go along. So I had asked you, could we do something with xAPI?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been just clicking through this because I want to show you the built-in xAPI, and then I can show you what Sarah's talking about, where because you can add in JavaScript into Mighty, it makes it really easy to be able to add in things like custom xAPI statements and things like that. So you can see within Mighty, there's this thing called power-ups, and you put in the custom code here. So this is all of the code for my whole project, all of the different functions that do different things. So I have things like confetti, the typewriting effect, even the little fave icon, like the little icons here. I have that built in. So let's take a look at when you publish Rise to xAPI out of the box, what that looks like, because I didn't put any custom in here, but I did it in another project and I'll show you. I'm just going to click the video so we can see if anything sends for the video for xAPI in here or if it doesn't. So it might be allowed for a second. All right, so we click that. I'm going to pause. And then over here in Build Capable, I'm going to go to the activity stream so we can see what kind of statements sent out of the box. And then I'll show you where I did custom statements. So let's go over here. All right, you can see over here what statements the last from here. Let me highlight where we have. So we could see some of the statements that we get from Rise out of the box. So we could see anonymous user experience because we don't have a way to pass the user data, influencing leadership at Galaxia. So that's just the name of the course, right? And then we have the object definition that it hasn't been completed yet, that they progress. So as you're going through each lesson, it will say you progressed. And you can see some of the data down here. It's not necessarily the drawback of this is the data is not super readable. So you could see there's a lot of numbers. There's not anything telling me like what lesson was it, any other specific information. So while it's nice to have this data, all we know is that the user progressed. We don't know where they progressed or what without diving deeper or digging deeper. So that's where the custom xAPI piece comes in. You can really define what you want to define and send to the learning record store. So before I show you that, Sarah, any questions or comments from you or folks on
Well,
the call?
Yeah, just a couple of things. So I love that you started with what can you get from Rise out of the box, because the answer to that is not very much. You get a lot of experience statements and progressed statements. For those of you who are using Rise now and you just publish it to xAPI, if you have a learning platform that allows you to load xAPI packages instead of SCORM packages, then you can get a lot of data. The problem is that a lot of it is junky data. To Melissa's point, it's not going to tell you what they progressed to or what specifically they experienced, because each of those lessons are not defined. And that's where we want to talk about today. How can we maybe write in custom statements that tell us specifically what is happening? The last thing that I'll mention here is that currently this is set to anonymous. That's because the way that Mel set that particular module up was to send it anonymously, but she could choose to switch that to switch that link to a form where you can then type in that information, which is what she's about to show. So maybe show us one with custom data.
Yeah, so I'll show you this one with custom data, and just to kind of preface this, why would I want custom data? I was telling Sarah probably back around 2018 is when I first started working with xAPI. And we used Rise for a lot of our external facing learning for folks when I worked at Amazon. And we also did a lot of performance support materials. So that means Rise stuff that's not in a learning management system. And we needed a way to prove to our leadership that we were getting a lot of requests for this kind of stuff. So we need to know, first of all, are people even using this thing? And we didn't have a way to do that. And xAPI was a way for us to be able to know that people were using it. And then how were people using it and how is it helpful? So that we could get that kind of data. And so that was where all of this spurred back then. And that was super manual. So now with all this, there's a way to do it that's not super manual. It's still a little manual, but not super manual. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and show you this one. This is just a template that was already in Rise that I added some statements to, and we'll go ahead and check it out. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in my information. Sarah said the forms are customizable, so you could put more information than just as what here. I just picked the first name and last name for this one.
And those forms you create in XCL specifically.
Yeah. And what I like to do, so for me, when I do anything with code, I want to see that things are working. So I use this thing called console logging to see that things are working. So I don't have to like keep going back out into a database or somewhere to see that something has sent. So we're going to go ahead and open this console here so we can see what's happening. So there's a few different things that I wanted to get data on in here just for testing purposes. I'm going to go over the console. And so when I scroll down here, one of the first things I believe, if I remember correctly, was this audio piece. So let's go ahead and click play, and then we should see a statement that sends. And then we're going to pause, and we're going to see a statement that sends. For this one, this works for audio or video. What it's sending is a play and pause related statement that we play and pause the audio here. And then once it gets to the end, it will also send the completed statement. So let's go ahead and scroll this thing down to the end. This is like a mindfulness exercise. So let's, oh, it's loud. Okay, so then you can see we got the completed statement, then I went backwards and then it recompleted again because I went forwards. Let's go ahead and we can take a peek at what this looks like in our XCLP activity stream here. Okay, so we can see my statements versus the built-in Rise statements, the ones that are here around these. We can see for these particular ones, some of the information that I passed over. So some of the things, when you pull this into say a data visualization tool or something, you're going to see the actual like lesson name. So this lesson is day 1, get grounded in the present. And then I put the description. This is not a good description. I just put it for testing. So like audio test play. You could put whatever it could be. They did this lesson and they completed this practice, or they did this practice, or different things like that. So you could do different things and put different things in. You can see the play and paused. And then, oh, the experience was actually that button, I believe. That could just be built into the xAPI and Rise.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we will typically do is when we're working with Rise modules or Rise courses, we just filter out all of the experienced data because all of the experienced data, those statements are sent by default anytime you experience a page, essentially. And so we override that with more specific data. So just like Mel just showed in the example, you can define not only were they on this page, this is the name of the page that they were on, and they played this very specific audio file. You cannot get that by default, but you can get it if you program in these custom statements. So tell us, how did you program these statements? This
Yeah,
is
so
what I'm most excited about.
I'm really excited about it too. So one of the things I've had a lot of leaders say to me in the past that's really stuck with me throughout my whole career is how can you extend yourself and the things that you do to impact other people? So force multiply, I think, is what a lot of people say. So when I was thinking about how can I create custom statements, I was like, I can do it for myself, but what if I could do it for everyone and allow everyone to do it? Because that makes the biggest business impact, right? So what I did was I built this tool using an AI coding generator called Replit. And this tool allows you to create your own custom xAPI statements without using code. It will generate the code, but you don't have to code yourself. What you can do is you can come to this, it's completely free. I'm never going to make it a paid thing. And then you can come in and you can say the verb that you want to choose from this list, what kind of event. So if it's like on click, if you want to pass over that this was completed or the course or lesson was completed or something was completed. I'm just going to put not completed. You'll put in the block ID. I'll show you that in a minute. Whatever you want the lesson name to be, this can be anything. And the lesson description. So it could be like practice, and then we could just, I'll just like quickly show you how to do this. So we'll go over to this one. And then when you're in Mighty, you don't have to have Mighty to do this, but it just makes it so much easier. You go over to the coding area, so custom code, and then this is going to show you where the actual block IDs are that you can copy. So we're going to go grab the one for this. So I grab that, you hover and grab, and then I'm going to come over here and I paste this in here, but you just need the letters that are in the quotes. And then once you have everything populated in there, you can click generate code. Oh, do I need a less? Oh, I forgot. Okay, so I also put in validation errors. So if you forget to fill something out, you have to put it in. So that's handy because I always forget to fill out fields.
And just to clarify, what Melissa has built here is the tool that will allow you to create the JavaScript that you can then paste into Mighty in order to get this custom data. And so if we started off this call and you've been overwhelmed with the code, one of the things that we can provide after this call is the step-by-step process. Mel's created a guide that tells you step-by-step, copy here, paste here. These steps don't require you to know code. These steps just require you to know in the course, what do you want to track? So I want to track a video. I want to track an audio file. I want to track a button that somebody clicked. You've got to know what you want to track. You go and grab that block ID that she just showed you, and then you're going to plug it into this code generator and say, I want it to say played this name of this thing, and here's the block ID. So it's being able to create that code without being a coder.
Yeah. And yeah, so you basically just copy it and then in Mighty, you go to JavaScript field here and you would just paste it in. You'd hit run and then save and then download your file as xAPI when you go to publish. So it's only a few steps. So when you go to LMS, xAPI, put whatever tracking settings you want and you do publish. And I'm trying to make more and more updates to this. So what I do plan to do is allow you to do more things like we were talking about. I don't want to overwhelm people and make this UI too busy, but maybe having a collapsed advanced area down here where you can actually get variables from InRise. So right now you can only track by the block ID. Let me show you something really quickly to give you an example. Oh, actually, got to go in the custom code so you can see this. So one of the things just to keep in mind with this is when we look at something that has multiple items like this, it's going to track a click. If you do click, it's going to track it on this, not these individual ones. So in advanced, I would need to come up with a way so that when each of these were clicked, you can send a statement versus just like if this section was clicked. So you're going to see this is for this whole thing, not just like each of these cards. So that's what you're going to get from that.
Right.
But it's helpful for things like buttons, downloads, those types of things where they click on that area. And it's also helpful if you're just trying to see like where people are clicking in your course from a user experience perspective too.
Absolutely. I think the thing that was most useful to us in our work was something like a call to action. At the end of a course, I want you to go visit this website, or I want you to download this resource. And we wanted to know, were people going to that website? Were they downloading that resource or not? And we could not do that without being able to program it into Rise after we published it out. And it was a very manual process. What Mel has built here is the ability for us to now inject that code before publishing it out. Using the tool that she built, the code generator, and using Mighty, it makes that process very easy. And I think there's a really good question in the chat about, do you have to use XCL to do this? And the answer to that is absolutely not. So you can publish this out as xAPI, and you can use this file in any platform that allows you to deploy xAPI packaged content. So let me ask you, Mel, why did you use XCL for this project?
It's just very like the user experience for me is just very simple. It took me like probably 5 minutes to set everything up. And also one of the things that for GDPR reasons and different things, I like the ability to make it anonymous because that's something that I had to do in the past where we couldn't send particular user names and things like that for projects. So this makes that really easy too because we still want to know if people were using it and how they were using it, but we just couldn't get data because of data privacy for those particular things. So that's another reason that I would use it. I don't know, like there's lots of other reasons, but I think looking back in the past, like those were things that were barriers for using xAPI, but we still needed a way to track things, right?
Yeah. That makes sense because the benefits, for those of you who are not familiar with XCL, the benefits of XCL is that you can deploy content to an unlimited audience. So you can send a link to as many people as you want. They do not have to create a user account. And even if it's anonymous, it will still bookmark you back to where you were as long as you're still visiting it from the same browser. So it even allows for anonymous bookmarking without an account. And that is incredibly useful when you're trying to track unique data. From a customer training perspective, from the perspective of being able to send training or content to as many people as possible and still get data about it without them having to go to an LMS and log in, that is a huge benefit of using XCL because XCL allows you to put any kind of content in there. It will pass xAPI data through. It will also allow you to use other types of content like PDFs, videos, things like that. So you can deploy any type of content. It doesn't just have to be xAPI enabled content. The other benefit of using it for something like this that I know we had talked about before, Mel, was that it comes with an LRS. So you don't have to go get an LRS. It comes with Veracity LRS as part of XCL. So you have your own LRS, you have a way to deploy content at scale, you can track all that data. So I wanted to make sure that folks had that information as well.
So one of the other things I wanted to share here too is the leaderboard piece. Would it be okay to jump into that?
Yes, we have a couple minutes left before we wrap up. That'd be great.
Okay, awesome. So the next phase of this, other than building on this tool so we can get more data, is to actually pull data back into Rise for xAPI. And then maybe I'll do it for SCORM too, but this is very particular to Rise. So what we're doing is we're going to query the LRS and bring data back into Rise from the LRS. And so that opens up a lot of possibilities. I posted on LinkedIn about it this morning, and I think folks are thinking through things like, oh, this means like we could do more personalized learning and things like that, which I think is really interesting to think about, which I haven't even thought about. So I'm going to put just a random name in here so you can see that it pulls through whatever name I put in here. So Heliar is a character in Severance. I'm just going with the whole Severance theme here. So hopefully this works because I have been in here before. So let's see. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to that audio block over there, and you're going to see that I put some information below it. And what we want to do is populate that information, and hopefully it works. All right, so you can see what I want to populate here is the username, whatever name was entered or passed over into the LRS, and then the play events. So how many times the person clicks play on this, pauses it, and completes it. And so we're going to take a look at this. Oop, okay. So you could see it pulled in the Heliar play event, pause event, and I think I clicked something that made it send completed, but you can see, let's see, let me do that. Play, pause. So yeah, so you could keep doing that and it's going to do it. And then we could go all the way. And then you could see completed because it got to the end. And then it's going to count for those because it does the loop. But yeah, I think this is like an interesting first step that we can pull the data back in. It's not pulling the data based on how you're interacting with this. It's pulling it as soon as the statement sends, it's sending it back.
And I think that's a really interesting functionality. For those of you who are using SCORM, my guess is that you're probably stuck with SCORM in your organization because your organization uses an LMS that requires SCORM. One of the benefits of using a tool like XCL is that we convert SCORM to xAPI automatically for you. So when you use XCL, even if you're working with SCORM packages, it will convert that data to xAPI so that you could still do things like this and pull that data back from the LRS and use it for different purposes. So that's one of the things that I think is really interesting about using this tool in particular, even to extend the capabilities of your existing learning platform, whether it's an LMS or LXP. This is really cool. I'm so glad that you shared this with us. I wanted to let all of you know that we will share some resources with you that walks you through the steps, because I know when you're watching the video, you probably want to walk through it yourself and go through those steps. I will tell you that I was able to go through the steps to create custom statements in a couple of minutes. So it's actually really easy. Please don't be intimidated by the code if it feels overwhelming. It's actually a lot simpler than it might seem, just following those steps. So we can share that, but tell us, where could we reach out to you, Melissa, if we're working on this and we have feedback or things that we're trying to do that we would like to get that information or feedback back to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll put the link in the chat here. Obviously, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn or whatnot, but in the actual code generator here, I'll go back to share my screen. So if you have any feedback on features and things like that, I really want to make this based on people's inputs and not just what I think should go in here. So if you do have anything you're looking for, wish list, you could click this little button here, and I put in a Google form here that you could add some requests. If it's like suggestions, feature requests, bugs, anything, you can put this in here. Really what I've been doing is making this based on what people have been asking me. So Sarah had some verbs that we know a lot of people are using, so I added those in there. Someone wanted to make sure that we had the media events and wrote that on LinkedIn, and I had other people say that. Really taking people's feedback on this. So if you do have any wish list items, let me know.
That is awesome. And I just have to say, thank you so much for your work on this. There is a buy me a coffee button at the top of her app. I bought her like, I don't know, 300 coffees or something. I just want you to keep working on this because it is such a value add to the community. And I know that we all really appreciate the work that you do. Just as a recap, the process here was to use Articulate Rise to develop this content using also the Mighty plugin to power up articulate. And then using the xAPI code generator app that you built in order to write the custom statements. Then you plug those into the Mighty plugin in the JavaScript code window. You publish it out for xAPI, and then you need to use that xAPI package in a tool or platform that allows you to distribute xAPI enabled content. That could be possibly your LXP. Maybe your LMS may accept xAPI packages. In this project, Melissa used Build Capable XCL to both test it and also deploy it. So that way she could collect anonymous data and control those links however she wanted. So that was the process for today. Thank you for joining this exclusive. These happen every Thursday. We have different guests talking about different things. Next week, we will have Josh Cavalier on talking about what can you do with AI and XCL. So hopefully we'll see you again next week. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.